Iris's thumb is at my cheekbone, and I have stopped pretending that I am here about the settlement. The heel of her hand is warm against the line of my jaw, warmer than I expected from someone whose professional precision has always read to me as a kind of controlled temperature, a thermostat set to an exact number and maintained. And the angle she has tilted my face produces a specific pressure along the left side of my jaw that I am not going to be able to file correctly after tonight. Her other hand is on the back of my chair, not on me. The presence of it behind me is its own kind of contact. The desk is beside the point. The settlement document is on the desk. My reading glasses are on the settlement document. 8 months of proceedings are on the final page, waiting. "The thing you just said," Iris says. A pause. The city through the window behind her. The lamp on the document between us. "Say it again." If you want to hear uncensored too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. Tell us where you're watching from and subscribe. 8 months ago, it was a Tuesday in October, and I was sitting in a consultation room that was not this office, and the attorney across from me was not Iris. It was an intake associate, which I understood. New client, contested financial structure, you begin with intake and escalate if the complexity warrants it. The complexity warranted it inside 20 minutes. The associate excused herself, and then I sat in a consultation room with a glass of water I was not drinking and a folder of financial documents I had already organized twice at home, and told myself that precision was the available resource. Precision was what I had. My professional life ran on it. My research ran on it. The past 14 months of my marriage's dissolution had been managed on it, in the sense that I had behaved with professional precision toward my own grief, which is not the same as managing the grief, and I was aware of the distinction. Iris came in 12 minutes later. She was carrying a legal pad and a case notebook, a proper bound notebook, not a yellow pad, the kind of notebook you use when you intend to keep a record. And she set both on the table and sat down and did not say anything immediately, which was the first thing. She read the intake form, all of it, in silence. While I sat across from her and drank the water I had not been drinking and watched her read, because there was nothing else to do, and because she was the kind of person a room reorganizes around when she enters, without anyone deciding to reorganize. I noticed that. I filed it under professional bearing, senior partner level. She was in a dark blazer, buttoned, and her hair was a high knot, sharp, the kind of knot that communicates something about how the day began, which was early and organized and deliberate. And when she finally looked up from the intake form, her eyes were dark and still, and the assessment in them was precise without being unkind, which was a combination I had not expected and had to quietly revise my initial filing to accommodate. "Your husband's financial architecture is designed to be difficult to read," she said. Not a question, not reassurance. An observation offered in the exact register of someone who has seen this particular architecture before and does not find it impressive. I said, "I know. I designed my own financial architecture to be equally difficult to read. We were both structural in our approach to most things." There was a pause. Not long. 2 seconds. 3. But it was a pause with a quality to it, a specific weight, as if something had just been noticed and noted, and the noting was taking a moment to complete. She said, "You're a structural biologist." "Yes." "Is that a professional habit or a personality characteristic?" I looked at her. I said, "Both, I think. In my experience, the two are difficult to separate after a certain number of years." Another pause. Something in her expression shifted. Not softened, not exactly, but recalibrated. She opened the case notebook and wrote something in it. I could not read her handwriting from across the table, and I did not try. "Then we'll work precisely," she said. "That will serve you well in this proceeding." The consultation ran 90 minutes, which was 30 minutes over the standard slot. She did not apologize for the time. She simply worked until the picture was complete and then closed the notebook and said she would have a strategy briefed to me by Friday. She did. It was thorough and specific and did not contain a single unnecessary word, which I found when I read it that Friday night in my kitchen at 11 p.m. with a glass of red wine I had earned, both efficient and genuinely reassuring in a way that had nothing to do with legal strategy. I filed that also under professional. The first case meeting was 3 weeks in. Iris's office this time, the senior partner's office, large and precisely ordered, the city window behind the desk itself wide and formal. The configuration was as it would remain for 8 months. Iris behind the desk, case notebook open, legal pad beside it. Nadia across from the desk in the client's chair, folder of documents on her lap, reading glasses in her bag. 45 minutes. She went through the opposing party's proposed terms, methodically, annotating as she spoke, and at the end she said, "You have two choices. You can accept the timeline and negotiate the assets, or you can hold the timeline and wait for the other side to move first. Which approach suits your working style?" I said, "I work in long experiments. I can hold a position." She wrote that down. I watched her write it. I thought, she's writing down that I can hold a position, which is a fact about me that she now has in her record and which I apparently volunteered without being asked directly for it. I did not examine this. I drove home and had dinner and went to bed at a reasonable hour, like a person whose interior life was in order. The case moved. Opposing counsel was difficult, which Iris had anticipated, and which she navigated with the precise and unhurried manner of someone who has been navigating difficult opposing counsel for 12 years and no longer finds it interesting, only manageable. She was correct about most things before they happened. She was correct about the timeline and the motion in December and the 3 weeks in February when opposing counsel tried a reclassification strategy that she had described to me in our October meeting as likely, which meant I was not surprised, which meant I was steady in a period when steadiness was, professionally speaking, the only thing standing between me and a significantly worse outcome. I was grateful for that. Professionally. Month 3. I arrived at the case meeting having read the prior meeting notes. This was not unusual. I read everything I sign and everything I receive. It is how I operate. But the prior meeting notes were in my own words, recorded on my phone after each session, and reading them felt less like review and more like something I was doing in the way one returns to a specific page of a book, not for new information, but for the quality of the thing on the page. I noticed this. I filed it under. She is effective. Effective professionals produce this response in their clients. It is appropriate. Month 5. I stopped attributing it to diligence. I was in my office at the Institute running a protein crystallization trial that requires more patience than most biological processes because the crystal either grows or it doesn't, and there is very little you can do in the interim except maintain conditions and wait. And I was waiting, and I was aware that the case meeting was on Thursday and it was Tuesday, and I was aware of Thursday in a way that had a specific quality to it that I recognized from my field only in the context of experiments I was interested in. Not obligated to, interested in. I sat with that for a while. Then I went back to the crystallization trial. Month 6. I stopped attributing it to professional respect. The session that ran 3 hours was in March. Opposing counsel had submitted a supplementary financial disclosure that was designed deliberately to complicate the asset division at the last possible stage before mediation. And Iris had called me at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday and said, "We need a session tonight. Can you be here at 7? I was there at 7. She was there before me. She was always there before me, which I eventually understood was not a power statement, but simply how she operated. She did not arrive. She was present, as if she and the office were not separate things. The session ran until 10. She ordered food at some point, 2 containers from the place on the ground floor of the building, which she set on the corner of the desk and did not comment on. Simply offered, and I ate mine in the client chair because there was nothing unusual about this. We were working. We worked. She took the opposing supplement apart piece by piece, annotating her legal pad with a speed and specificity that I watched in the same way I watch a skilled technician work. Not admiringly exactly, but with the focused attention of someone recognizing precision in action, which is its own kind of pleasure. At 9:45, she said, "We're going to be fine." She said it the way someone says a thing that is true and that they have arrived at through work, not reassurance. I believed her. I said, "I know." She looked at me. The lamp was between us. The legal pad was full. The city was dark through the window behind her. She said, "You've been steady through this. That's unusual in a contested proceeding." I said, "I've had something to be steady for." She did not ask what. She wrote something in the case notebook, briefly, and then closed it and said she would have the counter-response filed by Friday. I drove home and I thought about that exchange for longer than I intended to. I thought about the specific way she had said it. Not a compliment, an observation. An observation she had made without being asked for it. I thought about the way she had looked at me in the lamplight, which was not a long look, not a suggestive look, simply a direct one, the kind that has a location. I felt it between my collarbones for the rest of the drive, which I chose not to examine at a red light on a Wednesday night in March because there are limits to what a person can address in a single evening. Month 7. The mediation. Opposing counsel settled on terms that were, as Iris had said they would be in October, manageable if not perfect, which is most settlements, and which Iris communicated to me with her standard factual composure and the single additional note that the outcome was better than median for this category of contested case. I said, "Thank you," she said. "You did the work." She meant the financial documentation, the preparation, the steadiness. I thought she might also have meant something else. I did not pursue this thought. Month 8, the final settlement review. I dressed that morning in the way I dress for things that require steadiness, which is to say, thoughtfully, without performing it. The deep plum blouse because it fits well and the color does something for my complexion that I appreciate on difficult days. And the blush lace bralette underneath because it is the most comfortable thing I own, and I have come to associate comfort while looking composed with the particular brand of difficulty that requires you to seem more solid than you feel. Dark trousers, my hair in a soft, low bun, the reading glasses in my bag, because there would be documents. I arrived at Iris's office at 9 p.m. The building was quiet, the kind of after-hours quiet that belongs to buildings in which other people have finished their professional evenings and gone home, and the specific quiet of this floor, this hour, which I knew from the March session and which had a quality I would not have been able to describe in language that was appropriate to the professional context. She was behind the desk. She was always behind the desk. The settlement document was centered on it. The full proceeding, 8 months, arrived at its final page, the signature line visible from across the room. The desk lamp was on, directed at the document. Iris was in her dark blazer, buttoned, and her hair was in its high knot, which told me she had been here since morning, because this was not a fresh knot. This was the knot that had maintained its precision across a full working day and into the evening, and was still improbably exact. She looked up when I came in. "Nadia," she said. A greeting and an acknowledgement and nothing beyond that. "Iris," I said, and sat down. The case notebook was on the corner of the desk, closed. She did not open it. She did not open it. I noticed this. It was a 9-month habit. Every session, she opened the notebook first, wrote the date, oriented to the record, and then we began. It was a ritual of professional continuity, and tonight the notebook was on the corner of the desk in its habitual position, and it was closed. I did not say anything about this. I put my bag on the floor beside the chair in the habitual position. I sat the way I had sat in this chair for 8 months. Straight, composed, the folder of documents on my lap. The desk between us, the lamp on the document, the city behind her head, dark blue and distant through the tall glass. "Let's begin with the first-year provision," Iris said. We began. She walked me through the settlement methodically, as she had walked me through every document in the preceding 8 months. Thorough, specific, no unnecessary language. I followed along on my copy. The print was smaller than I remembered, or perhaps my eyes were tired, and I reached into my bag and took out my reading glasses and put them on, which I had done in every document-heavy session, and which did not constitute an event, except that she paused. Not visibly. A person who was not paying close attention to her would not have noticed it. But I had been paying close attention to her for 8 months, and the pause was there. A half second, a recalibration, and then she continued. I read the document. The lamp was warm on the page. The building settled around us in the specific way of buildings at this hour. A low sound from somewhere structural, a breath the building took. Outside her window, the city moved without urgency. We reached the maintenance clause. We reached the property division. We reached the retirement account provision, which had been the most contested element and which she had negotiated to an outcome that was fair. Genuinely fair, not merely tolerable, and which I still found, whenever I read it, slightly difficult to look at because it was fair. And fair was what I had wanted at the beginning of this, and the beginning felt like a different life in some specific way that I was not going to examine tonight in a professional meeting at 9:17 p.m. We reached the final page, the signature line. I looked at it. My name, printed below the line in the way names are printed when they are about to be signed. The date blank, a blank for the date. I had a pen in my bag. I looked at the signature line, and I thought about 14 months and 8 months of those 14 months having been spent in this office, across this desk, in the professional management of the dismantling of a shared life, which Iris had managed with exactness and care, and which I had permitted her to manage with an openness that I understood, now, on the signature page, had not been entirely about trust in her legal expertise. Iris said, "The terms are sound. There's nothing I would change on your behalf at this stage." I said, "I know." She said, "You've read all of it." I said, "Yes." And then, because the signature page was in front of me and the blank date was below my printed name, and 8 months of fortnightly meetings were somehow all in the room at once, and I had slept 5 hours and the reading glasses were on my nose, and I had dressed for difficulty, and none of this seemed equal to the occasion. The first year is always the strangest, isn't it? When you've structured everything the same way for a long time, and then the structure goes. A silence. It was not a long silence, 3 seconds. 4. I looked up from the document to find that Iris had gone very still. Not the stillness of professional attentiveness, which I knew from 8 months of sessions. A different quality. The stillness of someone who has heard something and is processing what they have heard and is not yet ready to respond, because the response would require something they have not prepared. She was looking at me. The lamp was on the document between us. The light caught the deep plum of my blouse at the neckline. The city was blue and remote behind her head. She had not opened the case notebook. It was still on the corner of the desk, closed. Her right hand was on the desk surface, palm flat, near the notebook's cover. She had not moved it toward the notebook. She was not going to open it. I understood this then, with a clarity that arrived not in my mind, but somewhere lower, somewhere anatomical, the place below the sternum that registers the shift in a room before the mind has language for it. The case notebook was closed. She was not going to open it. She said, "What you said about the first year." Her voice had a quality I had not heard in it before. Not softer, that would be the wrong word. More precise. The kind of precision that is not professional but personal. The kind you use when you're saying something carefully because you are not certain what it will open. I said, "It's in the record." She said, "Not that part." The lamp between us, my reading glasses on the document, the notebook on the corner of the desk, not opened, the record present and closed. The building settling around us at 9:20 p.m., which was its own kind of witness. I looked at her. I thought, 8 months. I thought, the March session, 10 p.m., 2 containers of food from the ground floor place. Her voice saying, "We're going to be fine," in the register of someone who has done the work to know it. I thought, the pause when I put on my reading glasses, a half second she would not have allowed herself in a different kind of evening. I thought, the case notebook, closed, on the corner of the desk, a 9-month ritual she had altered tonight without explanation. I said, "Which part did you want?" Her hand on the desk surface moved. Not toward me, toward the notebook. She placed her palm on the cover of it. Flat, not gripping, not opening. Her hand on the thing that held 8 months of record, pressing it gently closed. She said, "The part that isn't in the record." Below my sternum, the specific anatomical response of someone whose body has understood something before the mind has caught up. A tightening. The warmth of the lamp on the settlement document. My printed name on the signature line. "Tell me the other part," Iris said. Her voice had dropped in register. Not dramatically. This was not a dramatic woman. This was a woman who communicated in small, precise alterations, half-tones and pauses, and the deliberate placement of a hand on a closed notebook. But the register had changed. I heard it in the same part of my chest where I had been cataloging Iris for the better part of a year. I said, "It's not relevant to the settlement." She said, "I know." A pause. "Tell me anyway." I set my copy of the settlement document on the desk. I left my reading glasses on it. I sat back in the chair, not retreating, just removing myself from the forward position, the reading position, the client position. The position of someone preparing to speak without the document in front of her. I noticed Iris noticed this. She was still behind the desk. She was still in her dark blazer, buttoned, the only fully buttoned layer in the room, a precision of dress that was itself a held position, the partner's armor maintained, and I was aware of it in the way I had been increasingly aware of it for the past 2 months, which is to say, with an exactness that had nothing to do with fashion. At the collar of the blazer, where it fell open in a V, the black silk was visible. The deep plunge bra, clean and dark against her skin, visible only when she leaned forward over the document. She was not leaning forward now. She was still. But I knew it was there in the way I knew several things about Iris that I had filed carefully and incorrectly for the better part of a year. I said, "The first year." She waited. "The first year is strange because the structure goes. Everything you built together, the habits, the patterns, the particular way two people organize a shared life, it doesn't disappear cleanly. It persists in inconvenient places. You reach for things that aren't there. You go to say something and there's no one to say it to. Not out of grief, necessarily, the grief I managed, out of—" I paused. "Disorientation. You've built everything around a particular geometry, and then the geometry's gone, and your body keeps moving in the shapes of it anyway." Iris's hand pressed once on the closed notebook. Not a grip. A pressure. I watched her do it. I said, "I'm sorry, that's not—" "Don't apologize," she said, quickly, which was itself a departure. Iris did not speak quickly. She spoke with precision. This was fast, in the way something is fast when it is reflex. She picked up a pen from the desk, set it down, picked it up again, did not write anything. She said, "How long did the disorientation last?" I looked at her. "I'm not sure it has." The lamp on the document, the pen set down again, the city behind her. She said, "The geometry you described. Have you found another structure to move in?" She was asking me something specific, and we both understood what she was asking, and neither of us was going to say it in terms that made it legible, which was itself a structure, which was possibly the most Iris way this could have proceeded. And something in my chest moved in a way I did not have clean language for. I said, "There is a geometry I have been navigating around for approximately 6 months." A very long pause. 6 months, she said. Not a question. Locating it. "Yes." She looked at the case notebook. Her hand was still on its cover. Then she looked at me. She said, in a voice that was not the partner's voice, and had not been the partner's voice for the past several minutes. "Month 6 was April." "Yes," I said. "The opposing counsel motion," she said. "The 3-hour session." "No," I said. "Before that, the session in the middle of March, the 14th. Something happened in her face. Something small and specific and unmistakably not professional. A compression at the corners of her mouth. Not a smile, not distress, something that is not quite either of those things and exists between them. The expression of someone who has received information earlier than they were prepared for. She said, "I see," I said. "I imagine you do." And then she was not behind the desk. I do not know how to account for the transition. She did not stand and come around the desk in a way I can reconstruct with precision, only that she was behind the desk, and then she was beside my chair, and the desk was behind her, and the geometry of 8 months of professional meetings had simply altered, as geometries do when the structure beneath them changes. She was above my seated position. Her left arm was on the back of my chair, not on me, the presence of it behind me a specific kind of warmth, contained, close, not touching. Her right hand was at the side of my face, not a grip, not sudden. The heel of her palm against the line of my jaw and then her thumb, moving very slowly, the pad of it, tracing the outer edge of my cheekbone with a precision that had the same quality as everything she did, the same deliberateness, as if she had decided to do this and was now doing it with her full attention. My jaw, the anatomical location, the line of bone beneath my left ear where her hand curved. Warmer than I expected. She ran warm, which I had not known from 8 months of professional distance across a desk. The palm of her hand against my jaw was warmer than the lamplit air of the office, and the warmth of it traveled. Not dramatically, not in a way I would have been able to map onto a diagram, but inward, toward the center of my chest, toward the place below the sternum where I had been filing everything incorrectly for 6 months. I did not move. I did not breathe. I was aware of the settlement document on the desk, my reading glasses on the signature page, the blank date. I was aware of the case notebook on the corner of the desk, her hand no longer on it. I was aware of the city through the window behind where she had been standing, the blue of it, the remote and indifferent dark. I was aware of her. "The thing you just said," Iris said. Her voice was quiet. The specific quiet of a voice that has removed its professional register and has not yet decided what to use instead. "About the geometry you've been navigating around?" "Yes," I said. My voice was steady. "I have been practicing this, internally, for 2 months. Steadiness in specific circumstances. The kind of steadiness that requires the blush lace bralette and enough sleep and careful self-management, of which I had achieved one of 3. Say it again, she said. Not the words, the fact. Name it. Her thumb at my cheekbone. The pad of her thumb, moving once, a slow, deliberate arc, not quite from the outer corner of my eye to the edge of my jaw, but contained, precise. A small gesture with the quality of something intentional in a situation that is running out of space for unintentional things. I said, I have been navigating around you. I said it plainly in the same register I would use in my laboratory, with the same precision I use when I am reporting a result. The result is that the data shows what the data shows, and you do not apologize for it. A pause. Her thumb was still. How long? She said. 6 months, I said. March the 14th. You said I had been steady through this. I went home and I thought about the specific way you said it for longer than I intended to. Something in her breathing changed. I heard it, not a sharp intake, not dramatic, something quieter and more controlled than that. The specific change in the quality of a breath when someone is holding something, and the holding requires effort. Iris, I said. Don't, she said quickly, and then, wait. Her thumb at my cheekbone, still. The lamp on the desk behind us, the settlement document, the reading glasses on the signature page, the case notebook, still closed, on the corner of the desk. She said, I have been. Careful. I said. I know. I am careful, she said. I am careful with professional lines, with case management, with the specific way a client relationship. She stopped. Her thumb moved again. The arc, the deliberate arc, once. I have been careful. I know, I said again. You are very precise. Don't be generous about it. I'm not being generous, I said. I'm describing you accurately. You have been careful. The care is part of what I have been navigating around. You don't do anything imprecisely, including this. Her hand at my jaw shifted, not removing itself, adjusting, the heel of her palm moving slightly so the angle of her thumb was different, more direct, the contact point now the crest of my cheekbone rather than the arc below it. The settlement, she said. The settlement is sound, I said. You said so. It is. The case can be closed. The case can be closed at any point. The document is. She stopped again. I waited. The document doesn't require tonight, she said. No, I said. It doesn't. Silence. The building settled. The ventilation, a low, continuous breath. The city outside the window, indifferent and blue. The lamp, warm and directed, on the unsigned document, on my glasses, on the last page of 8 months. Her other hand came off the back of my chair. I felt the warmth leave that space behind me. The specific absence, the skin along my upper back registering the withdrawal of a warmth that had not been touching me, but had been present and was now absent, and the absence had a shape to it, a location, the width of an arm above a chair back. She stepped back. Not far, not the professional distance, not the desk's width, but a step. Enough to look at me. Her hand came away from my jaw, and for a moment, a specific, measurable moment, I felt it, as I would feel the removal of a direct physical support. I sat very still in the chair, while the warmth of her palm dissipated from the line of my jaw and left only the memory of its shape there. She was looking at me. She reached back and pulled her own desk chair, the partner's chair, the chair she had sat in for every meeting, around the side of the desk to the space directly beside my chair. She set it at an angle, facing me. She sat in it. The desk was behind her now. The settlement document was to her left. I could see the signature page, the reading glasses on it, the blank date below my name. The case notebook was on the corner of the desk behind her, closed. The lamplight caught both of us now, warm, equal. No longer her in the city light blue from the window and me in the lamp's glow from below. Both of us in the same light. She put her hands on the arms of my chair, on either side, not on me, the outside edges of her hands at the arms of the chair, close to my thighs through the dark trousers, the contained warmth of proximity, close enough that if I had moved my legs slightly outward, I would have touched her, which I did not do, which cost something, a specific currency I had been spending in increments for 6 months. Her face was at my level now. The high knot of her hair still exact. The blazer still buttoned, the dark, tailored precision of it. The professional layer maintained, the only fully buttoned layer in the room. I thought, she's still buttoned. This woman who has just moved her chair from behind the professional barrier and placed it beside mine, in a room at 9:22 p.m., with an unsigned settlement document at her elbow and a closed case notebook and 8 months of careful professional management, is still buttoned because she releases things in sequence and she has not decided to release the blazer, which means this is still a decision in process. She said, "Name the month." I said, "March." Her eyes went through something. I watched it happen. Not a large movement. She would not permit a large movement, not yet, possibly not ever. This was not that kind of woman. But her eyes went through something, and then she closed them. 1 second. Just one. When she opened them, something in her expression had changed. The partner's expression, exact, contained, the assessment that had read me across 8 months of case meetings, was still there in the architecture of her face. But something else had come into the same space, and they were both present now, the professional and the personal, and she was not hiding one for the sake of the other. She was holding both. At the same time, which was, in its own way, a kind of precision. "March," she said. "The 14th. Yes." I said you had been steady. She said it as if testing the phrase, as if she was trying to understand what she had been doing when she said it. "Yes. I remember the session," she said. "I remember—" She stopped. Her hands were still on the arms of my chair. "I remember closing the notebook that night and writing the date, and then sitting for a few minutes before I turned off the lamp." I looked at her. "I filed it," she said, "as client rapport." Something shifted in my chest. Not painfully, not with grief, with something that was not quite amusement, but was its cousin. The specific dark pleasure of recognition. I said, "I filed it as professional effectiveness." She looked at me. I saw the thing that was not quite amusement move through her face too, briefly before it was contained again. "We have been," she said slowly, "very precise in our misfiling. We are both structural in our approach," I said. Her thumb, the hand that had been at my cheekbone, that had moved through its deliberate arc and then withdrawn, moved now. The hand was on the arm of my chair, and the thumb lifted from the wood and rested for a moment, considering. Then it came to my knee, the pad of her thumb against the dark fabric of my trousers, on my knee, with a pressure that was not a grip and was not an absence. It was a placement, a specific, deliberate placement. The way she placed her hand on the case notebook's cover, to close rather than to open. The warmth of it, through the fabric, against the rounded cap of my knee. I felt it as a physical event in a specific location, and then as a radiating warmth in the surrounding tissue, and then as something I was not going to be able to file under any category I had access to. I said, "I should be. The signature." "Tuesday," she said. "Tuesday." "The case can close Tuesday," she said. Her thumb did not move on my knee, not moving. The stillness of it was its own kind of action. "Tonight is not a case meeting." I looked at the settlement document on the desk, my reading glasses on the signature page, the blank date. "It became something else," I said. "Tell me when," she said. "Tell me when it became something else." I thought about this. I was aware of the lamp's warmth. I was aware of the ventilation, low and continuous. I was aware of the city, indifferent behind the glass. I was aware of her thumb on my knee. Still, the specific temperature of a hand through dark fabric, warmer than expected, warmer than any temperature I had not quite been reaching toward for 6 months. I said, "Month 2. I drove home from the intake session and I thought about something you said for longer than I intended to." "Which session was that?" she asked. Precise. She wanted the specific. "The full consultation, the first one, the 90-minute session." "What did I say?" I looked at her. "You asked whether the structural quality was a professional habit or a personality characteristic." She said nothing. Her thumb pressed once on my knee, not harder, a pulse, the pad of it, a single increase of pressure, and then returning to its prior weight. I said, "I spent 40 minutes on the drive home thinking about the fact that you had asked me about myself in the middle of a legal consultation in a way that felt specific, specifically interested." And then I told myself that you were building a comprehensive case picture, which is what effective attorneys do, and went to bed. That's accurate, she said. I was building a case picture. I know. I was also, she stopped. A pause. The pause had the specific weight of a person choosing between an easier sentence and a harder one. I was also specifically interested. The city through the window, the lamp, the signature page. I put my hand on her knee, not pressing. Placed. The weight of a hand on a knee, which is the weight of a decision. The dark fabric of her trousers, slightly warmer than I expected. She ran warm. I was learning things about Iris that a desk between us had kept from me for 8 months, and there was something in that, in the learning, that was both a pleasure and a grief of its own, which I was not going to examine now, in this specific moment, with her thumb on my knee and my palm on hers, and the settlement document unsigned on the desk. Her blazer was buttoned. I looked at it. She saw me look at it. She said, in a voice that was still controlled, that was precisely controlled, that was controlled with the effort I had been watching her expend since approximately the moment she moved her chair. Tell me what you want, I said. I've been precise about that for 6 months. Tell me imprecisely. Something happened in my chest. The specific thing that happens when a person who is always precise offers you imprecision, which is itself a gift of the highest order from that particular kind of person. I said, I want you to take the blazer off. A silence. Then she reached up and unbuttoned the blazer. 3 buttons, top to bottom. The professional layer opening. She did it slowly, with the same deliberateness she applied to everything, not performing it, but not hurrying it either, choosing to open, in sequence, each button, which was so thoroughly itself, so entirely Iris, that I felt the specific warmth of recognition in my chest alongside everything else. She shrugged the blazer back off her shoulders and folded it once neatly, as she would fold anything she intended to use again, and placed it over the arm of the desk chair behind her, the black silk of the bra against her skin, in the lamplight, without the blazer, the deep plunge of it, the warmth of her in the evening air of the office, without the professional layer between her and the room. She looked at me, not with the assessment, with the something else that had come into the same space and was now the only thing. I said, Iris. She put her hand on my face. The same hand, the heel of her palm at the line of my jaw, exactly where it had been before. The same warmth, but this time without the blazer between the warmth of her arm and the air, the silk of her sleeve against my neck below the ear where her palm curved. Her thumb at my cheekbone. The arc of it, deliberate. The pad moving with the same precision it had moved with, the first time and the second time. Because this was the 3rd time. And by the 3rd time, a gesture carries the accumulated weight of everything that has preceded it. I felt it in the back of my teeth. I felt it in the inside of my wrists. I felt it below my sternum in the anatomical place that has been registering Iris since March the 14th. She leaned forward. Not all the way. She was not a woman who moved all the way in the first moment. She moved in sequence, deliberately, each step its own decision. But she leaned forward, and the black silk was warm when her shoulder came against mine, and she smelled of cedar and cold linen and something faintly botanical underneath. A clean, cold note that I had been aware of every time the professional geometry brought us close enough to be aware of it and had filed under. The room, the office, and had been wrong about from the beginning. Her forehead came to my temple, stopped there, the warmth of it against my hairline, the soft pressure of her skull against mine, and we were both very still. 9 months, she said, quietly, the quiet of a voice without its professional register. 8.5, I said. The intake associate was not you. A pause. And then, something I had not heard from her before, which was a small breath that was not entirely composed, not the deliberate breath of professional management, a breath that had something else in it, something that was the sound of someone whose armor had been handed to the desk chair and who was, in this moment, without it. Nadia, she said. Yes. I've been careful for a long time. Her thumb on my cheekbone, moving, the arc again, once, slow. A long time, before this case. The way I manage, the lines I hold, they are not arbitrary. I know, I said. I would not want you to have held them less carefully. A pause. her forehead still at my temple, the warmth, the cedar and linen, the lamp's warmth behind us on the document we were not looking at. She said, "Then you understand why I need you to know this is not." "I know what this is," I said. "I am a structural biologist. I know what I am building and what I'm not." Silence. Then, "What are you building?" I turned my face, just slightly, the angle of my head rotating on the pivot of her palm, her thumb adjusting its position at my cheekbone, the warmth of the adjustment. My face now closer to hers than it had been by some small and unmistakable degree. I said, "I don't know yet, but I know what the geometry is." She looked at me, the dark of her eyes, close. I had looked at her eyes across a desk for 8 months. I had not been at this distance. I had not been at the distance where the lamp caught the specific quality of her gaze, which was not just dark, but layered, deep in the way still water is deep, where the surface shows you one thing and the depth is something else. "Tell me," she said. I said, "The geometry is you." She made a sound, very small, at the back of her throat. The sound of something that has been held in a specific position for a long time and has been released from that position, not violently, but the release is audible. She kissed me. She kissed me the way she did everything, with precision, with deliberateness, with the quality of someone who has decided and is now executing the decision with full attention. Her hand at my jaw, her thumb at my cheekbone, and her mouth against mine in the warm lamplight of the office at 9:40 p.m., with the settlement document unsigned on the desk and the case notebook still closed on its corner and the city blue and indifferent through the window behind us. It was not soft. It was not urgent. It was exact. The specific temperature of her mouth, warm, slightly warmer than her hand. The pressure of it, measured. The quality of her stillness inside the movement of it. The way she did not rush and did not retreat, simply was present in it, with the full attention she applied to everything she did. Her other hand came up and rested on the outer edge of my shoulder, not gripping. The weight of her palm on the outer architecture of my shoulder through the plum blouse, and I felt the warmth of it in my collarbone on the side where she was touching me and in the opposing collarbone on the side where she was not, and both locations at once. I put my hand on her jaw. I had not planned this. The narrator does not plan, the narrator receives, responds, eventually chooses. And this was the choosing, the specific choosing of bringing my palm to the line of her jaw in the same configuration she had given to me. The warmth of her jaw under my hand, the high knot of her hair above the heel of my palm, and I felt her still when I did it, a specific held stillness, as if the touch had required something from her that she was taking a moment to accommodate. She pulled back a degree, not away, back a centimeter, to look at me. "Tuesday," she said. "Tuesday," I said. "The case closes Tuesday." "Yes." She looked at me, her thumb on my cheekbone still, the arc of it, once more, one last time for tonight, the slow, deliberate movement of it from the outer corner down to the edge of my jaw, and it had the quality now of something that had already been practiced, that had already been learned, that had a history, even though its history was 40 minutes old. She said, "I need to write one entry in the case notebook." I looked at her. "What entry?" She reached back, without releasing me, one-handed, the hand at my jaw not moving, and picked up a pen from the desk. She leaned past me and opened the case notebook to the current page and wrote, in the precise handwriting I had never been able to read from across the desk. "Case concluded. Client's terms met. Final proceedings to close Tuesday." She closed the notebook, set the pen down. "That's the professional record," she said. "Yes," I said. "The other part is not in the record." "No," I said. "It isn't." She was quiet for a moment. Then she reached forward to the settlement document, to my reading glasses on the signature page. She picked them up. She folded them, slowly, carefully, the same way she had folded her blazer, with the deliberateness of someone handling something that belongs to someone they intend to see again. She put them in the pocket of the blazer folded over the arm of the desk chair behind her. Not in my bag. Her blazer pocket. She did not explain this. I looked at the settlement document, the signature page, my printed name, the blank date. "Tuesday," I said. "Tuesday," she said. The lamp on the unsigned document, the case notebook, closed, one entry written inside it in her precise hand, the professional record, complete, the blazer on the desk chair, my reading glasses in its pocket, the city through the window, the blue of it unchanged, the same indifferent dark. Outside in the corridor, a door, the last person in the building leaving, a quiet mechanical click, and then the building reducing to the two of us and the ventilation's low breath and the lamp. She did not leave. I did not leave. We sat in the warm light of the office, the desk's width behind her now, the settlement document at her elbow and the case closed and the case notebook on the corner of the desk with its single final entry. And outside the window the city moved, without knowing what had just been opened in a room on the 14th floor of a law firm at 9:47 p.m. on a Thursday. On the cover of the case notebook, in the morning, in her handwriting, not a case note, the date, nothing else.